Okay, hello everyone, and welcome back to World of Tanks Blitz, and, well, as it's Christmas time, and since I did it last year, I may as well make it a running tradition, where, at the end of the year, when they've released mostly all of the tanks that they're going to release, I go through and just say which tank is my favourite at each tier, and explain why. So, starting up, we've got Tier 1, where you've got the LOL Tractor or the Renault FT. And honestly, I'm going to have to say the Renault FT. The LOL Tractor has got a very good 30mm gun, which is its stock gun. However, the FT is just, it's more fun. I've got to grips with it better. It's got a very good 25mm magazine-fed gun. The armour is not that bad for a Tier 1 tank. It's actually got good enough armour for a Tier 1 tank. The gun is very good. Plus, it looks really nice with the French camouflage, which I've named to Bastille. Oh, wrong thing. There you go, Bastille. Which just makes it look really nice in World War I, because after all it is a World War I design, so it just looks really good. The only problem is the gun depression, but it is a very good tank. I do enjoy playing it. And yeah, overall it's just a really nice, fun tank to play with. The LOL Tractor is not that bad, however, forward-mounted engine is a bit of a problem. Very little armour. The gun is good, but yeah, I just prefer the Renault FT. So moving on to Tier 2, we've gained a lot of Tier 2 tanks over the past year. Most recently, of course, the Light 6C. But overall, which tank do I prefer? It is a toughie. I will admit, it is a tough tank. It is a tough tier to choose my favourite tank in. It is a toss-up between the Micro Mouse, which I think I chose last year, and the FTAC. And really, I can't decide. The R35 gets an honourable mention because it is a fun tank. It's got really good armour, it's got a very good gun, and it is the best Tier 2 French tank out of the two lights. And honestly, I think I'll give it to the FTAC. I think the FTAC is my most favourite Tier 2 tank. This year at least. Obviously, it is a sort of joint first place with the Micro Mouse, because, as I think I said last year, it's got really good armour, it's got a decent enough gun, it's really good against these auto-loaders, it's impervious to lots of Tier 2 tanks, depending on the guns that they mount. But honestly, I think the FTAC is the tank which I prefer. The same problem with the FT is that it doesn't have very good gun depression, and it doesn't have very good armour because of this gun shield. However, the 25mm it gets is a super fun gun. It is the funnest gun that I have seen on a Tier 2. 12 shots in the magazine, it's a machine gun of death. It's just super fun to play with. It looks really good in the Bastille paint. It's not that bad in mobility, actually. It's more mobile than you would think. It's pretty sneaky. It can suit a variety of roles depending on the gun. And after all, it has got the fun factor of that 25mm gun. So yeah, I think I'll give it to the FT. Runner-up, Micro Mouse. Third place, I'm not too sure, honestly. Yeah, FTAC, then the Micro Mouse is my favourite tanks at Tier 2. At Tier 3, we have still got a fairly large selection of tanks. And as to the tank which as to my favourite tank at Tier 3, I'm going to have to give it to the Ice Claw again, the SU-76I. It's just a really fun tank. It's got a very good gun mounted on it. It's got a very powerful 76mm gun, which can just deal a huge amount of damage to Tier 3 vehicles and give Tier 4s a good kicking as well. It's got 60mm of armour at the front, which is super good at Tier 3. There's nothing other than HE or other tank destroyers can really damage you at Tier 3. Tier 2s, basically forget about it. It's based on the Panzer III chassis, so it's as mobile as a medium tank. It's got armour of a heavy tank at Tier 3, and it's got the gun of a tank destroyer. It's also got the profile of a tank destroyer, and it's just really, really good. yeah, it's sort of like a tier 3 Seal Clubber. It's that good. Runner-up, Cruiser 2. The Cruiser 4, just off topic, the Cruiser 4 has got a very good Bofors, but the Cruiser 2 has got this 3.7-inch howitzer, and it's just a monster. It's just a really, really fun tank. However, the Ice Claw is just the better tank, and so I'm going to have to say my favourite tank at tier 3 is the Su-76I, with the Cruiser 2 coming in, running up. At tier 4, I don't have that many selection at really a tier 4. So, yeah, it shouldn't really be that difficult. However, at tier 4, I am going to say that my favourite tank has probably got to be the Matilda. It's a fairly slow tank, really. It's very slow, but it is very well armoured. It's got a very, very good gun. Using it with adrenaline plus black tea to get the fastest firing gun you can get. It shoots out a shell every 2.2 seconds. Even without adrenaline, 2.6 seconds. It does crazy DPM. You can burn through enemies' HP very quickly due to the massive rate of fire. It's got fantastic penetration. Even when you come up against tier 5 tanks, you can burn through enemy heavy tanks at tier 5 just super easy. It's, yeah, very well armoured. It is slow, unfortunately, but because of the armour, many things will have problems penetrating you without premium ammo. And yeah, it's just a really nice tank, and it is my favourite tank at tier 4. Honourable mention, the A32. It's a very, very nice medium tank. It's got fairly useful armour because it is the T34 prototype. So yeah, it's got not that bad armour. The gun, not that accurate, but it does pack a punch once it hits. 75mm gun. But in terms of just how good the tank is, and you know, varying other factors, I just think the Matilda's the better tank. Plus, using the Dunkirk camo, it looks really nice. Although, what is this camo? It's called Dynamo. So yeah, using the Dynamo camo, the lines makes it look really nice. But yeah, I would say this is my favourite tier 4 tank. Tier 5 is a whole different kettle of fish, because I have got a fairly large amount of tier 5 tanks, as you can see. And I think the tank which I like the most, my favourite tank out of all of these, probably going to give it to the Shinobi, the Chinook, which is an odd choice considering that the 5/4 is, or was my favourite tank last year, I do believe, yeah. However, since they put it on sale, it's lost its spark. I mean, I say that, it's still a very good tank, and I do enjoy driving it. It's got very good armour. It's better armour than heavy tanks at this tier. But it's not a particularly rare tank anymore. It is still a great tank, don't get me wrong, but in terms of factors which admittedly probably shouldn't include, but it does in this case, rarity. I'm going to say the Chinook is my favourite tank at tier 5. It's got a very good medium tank gun. The 75mm gun on this is a very, very powerful gun. It's a very good gun. The armour is not that great, but the gun has got everything you need. It's got good penetration, it's got decent enough alpha, it's got good enough accuracy, the aim time's not that bad. It's a very mobile tank. Well, it's fairly mobile tank, which means that you can do peekaboom around corners. The turret can actually bounce some shots, so the armour was not particularly great. I mean, 50 frontal hull, 75 frontal turret, it's not particularly great armour. It is passable against tier 4s and some other tier 5s. And yeah, it's my tank of choice for tier 5 in terms of which of these tanks is my favourite. Honourable mention, Churchill I. I do very much love the Churchill I. It's got a very good 75mm gun. It is probably my favourite heavy tank at this tier, along with the Churchill III, although the Churchill I does take it for me. So yeah, honourable mention, Churchill I, very good gun, good side scraping profile, but in terms of general all-roundedness, Chinook is going to be my favourite tank at tier 5. Tier 6, again, a lot of tanks here, a lot of good tanks. especially at this tier. For example, you've got the Victory, the Schmallturm, you've got the Churchill VII, you've got the Firefly, the Tog, KV2. There is a lot of tanks at the tier which I do like, and I'm going to say the Churchill VII is going to be my favourite tank. I mean, I know I love the Firefly, and I do indeed love the Firefly. I also love the Schmallturm as well, but I just think the Churchill VII is my favourite tank at tier 6. It's got a really good armour profile, which a lot of people overlook when they're talking about the Churchills. It's got 152 frontal hull and turret. It's very good at side scraping. The gun, whilst it doesn't have particularly the best penetration, it is at least a decent enough penetration. Plus you can of course blow APCR, but then you can say that with any tank. But yeah, it's got a decent rate of fire. It's got good enough accuracy and damage. Well, what is the accuracy actually? 0.33 accuracy. It's really accurate actually. Looking at that, it's a really accurate gun, which means that sort of negates the penetration. It's mounted on a really good tank. It is a mobile because it is a Churchill, but it's a Churchill. It's just a really nice tank. It's good at side scraping. You can easily hold a flank in one of these if you've got strong people protecting your flank, so you can really stem and advance if you position this thing well. Yeah, really good armour. Decent enough gun, which means that you can just sort of keep putting shots in to enemy tanks. Yeah, honourable mention, Firefly, 17 pounder, very nice. Mounted in not that bad of a medium tank. And again, honourable mention to the Schmallturm. But I'm going to give it to the Churchill VII for my favourite tier 6 tank. As for tier 7, there is a lot of tanks at tier 7, again, which I do like. For example, you have got the Helsing, which is a very good tank destroyer, Tiger P, Tiger I, the Mutant, the Tankenstein, T28 HTC. And as for which is my favourite tank at this tier, it is a toughie. I will say that it is a very, very, very tough decision to make at this tier. However, I think I'm going to give it to this thing, the T28 HTC. Although it is a tough one, because the two contenders, I think, are going to be the Tiger I and the T28 HTC. And honestly, I cannot decide which one I prefer. But I think I will stick with this thing. I think I will give it to the T28 HTC because it's got very, very strong frontal armour, 203mm. That's really good. It's a very, very good assault tank. If you angle this thing, it becomes impenetrable. The gun it mounts, 105. Yeah, 105 T5. The gun that it mounts here is a decent enough gun. It's definitely designed towards the assault tank aspect rather than a sniper, because it's got very good frontal hull armour. These side bits are the weak spots, obviously the little machine guns and the cupolas to a certain extent. But if you angle this thing around a building, it's got a really, really good traverse. It can traverse to like here and here with the gun before actually needing to move the hull. Which means that 203 increases even more, makes it impenetrable to any sort of AP and to some APCR shots. Which means that you cover up the two weak spots, you can keep blasting away. It's very good for leading a charge, especially in city combat. If you can back yourself against a wall, light tanks and medium tanks can have problems actually getting around you. Yeah, if you keep waggling it, the weak spots, because of how rounded they are, the weak spots don't really become weak spots if they hit them at an angle like that, and they hit it sort of here, shot will glance off. And it's just a really, really good assault gun. And Again, some people don't like this tank, which I can understand, but for me, it fits an assault gun style, play style very well. I enjoy playing assault guns. I like being up at the front of the action. So yeah, leading a charge, being an assault gun, this thing is just really good, and it's not that bad of a tank really, at all. The only problem is, of course, the unmanoeuvrability of it, but in every other aspect, gun arc, the actual gun itself, the tank itself, it's a really good tank. Tiger 1, of course, honourable mention. I do love playing the Tiger 1. Not so long ago I did have that game where I got that top gun and we still lost. Because it's a very good side-scraping tank. The gun is very good as well. I've got to grips with playing it. I can understand a lot of people won't have, because it is a very boxy tank. If you're not that fluent with side-scraping and angling, it will become your most hated tank, because unless you angle this thing correctly, shots will just penetrate right through you. But it does have a very good 88, which is why it gets an honourable mention, because I do love the Tiger 1. As you can see, I have permanently enriched it. But the T28 HTC will take it for me at tier 7. Honourable mention, of course, the Tankenstein. With the buffs to it, it's become even more of a monster. But yeah, honourable mention for that. Tier 8. Tier 8 is a very highly contested tier. Not only in professional playstyles, or at least, professional plays, as in the competitive, because tier 8 is the most competitive tier, I do believe, just because there's such a variety of tanks here, both premium and non-premium, which means that there are a lot of tanks at this tier which I do like, such as the T34 Independence, the KV5, the IS-3 Defender, the Tiger II. The Glacial is also not that bad of a tank. The Panzer, that's a very good light tank. I very much enjoyed driving this thing. In fact, I do enjoy driving it when I take it out with the Twister Cup camo. But honestly, I think I chose this last year because I only had like 3 or something tier 8s, but since then, of course, I have grown a lot of tier 8s. But at this tier, I'm going to say Tiger II is still my most favourite tank at this tier. There's just something about the King, which makes it the King still to me, because these two American tanks, they've got a very good gun. The Experimental has also got decent armor. The Independence has just got freedom coming out of it at every angle. I mean, the KV Fortress is, the KV5 is just a really nice tank. The Glacial's got decent enough armor. However, it all sort of blends together with the Tiger II, and I just think this is the greatest tier 8 heavy at tier 8. It is my favourite tank at tier 8. How much have I played this thing? 62 battles. So yeah, I've played 62 battles in it. I know to a lot of people that won't seem a lot, but I've done 2,200 battles, so yeah, I'm still not that far into the game, sort of. But yeah, I think this is just a really good tank. It's fantastic at side scraping. It's got a very good side armor for side scraping and bouncing shots. The turret is fairly strong. When you're coming up against it, you can of course snipe for the top of the turret here, which is thin armor, so you can pass through that. But the gun it mounts, it can either mount the long 88, which is what it had historically, which a lot of people do still mount because it's still a very good gun at tier 8. But the best 105 gun that you can unlock is the gun which I use, and it's a really good gun with good alpha damage. It's got good penetration. The reload time is not that bad on it, about 9 point something seconds, although I think I may be wrong on that. The armor is very good. You can angle it at the front and bounce shots from the front. The turret as well, you can bounce shots from the turret if you do it like that. Side scraping around corners is also very good. It's got a really good armor profile. Tier 9s can bounce off of you as tier 8s will, and it's just a really good tank to drive. It's fairly immobile, but in terms of tier 8 immobility, it's certainly not the most immobile tank. The Experimental, the T34, the KV5, those are all fairly mobile tanks. This thing, not too bad in mobility. It's only 31, but honestly I don't think it's that bad at all. So yeah, it is my favourite tank at tier 8. Tier 9, yeah, I still don't have a lot of tier 9 tanks. I've got a choice of the Panzer, the E75, or the 4502B. And yeah, there's only 3 tanks to choose from. And honestly, I'm going to say the E75 is my favourite tank, mostly for the same reasons that I chose the Tiger II. It's got a very strong armour profile. 120 side armour makes it glorious for side scraping. There's nothing that will get through this thing when it's side scraping. And I said in my review, if you have mastered the Tiger II, you will easily master the E75, because it's basically a bigger Tiger II. Bigger armour, bigger engine, bigger gun, bigger bonus. Yeah, very strong armour all around. 252 frontal turret. 200 frontal hull? No, 160 frontal hull. Alright, fair enough, but still 120 sides. Again, yada yada yada. Same thing as I said for the Tiger II. Very good side scraper. Fantastic 128 gun. Very good average damage. It's got decent penetration at tier 9. The armour, very strong. Rounded turret sides, you can bounce things off of them. Lower glacis is a weak spot, obviously. An even bigger weak spot on this thing because it's like half the front of the tank. But if you can cover that up, very, very strong tank. And yeah, it's probably my favourite tier 9 tank. The Panzer is a very nice tank. It's a very mobile heavy tank. It's very mobile for a heavy tank. You can bounce shots off of. You can get things bounced off of you, and the gun is a bit hit and miss, which is the big problem. But it is a mobile tank. It is rather fun to drive. You get wildly varying damage numbers when you actually hit things, but that's part of the fun for it, I suppose. And of course, the 4502B, very good side scraper again. Rear-mounted turret makes it very good at that. It's a decent assault tank. Yeah, they're all very well nice. Good England. They're all very nice tanks, but I think the E75 is going to be my favourite tier 9 tank. And at tier 10, only choice of 2. Obviously, no contest between the two for me. Mouse is superior. As you see, I've played 113 games in the mouse. It's second only to the 4502B, which I've played 120 in. Tank and Signs also climbing the list with 102, but for tier 10, I only have 2 tier 10s, and the mouse still reigns supreme for varying reasons. I am more accustomed to playing the mouse. I would like to think that I've mastered the mouse, but I still have games where I do absolutely nothing and die. But the 128, decent gun at tier 10, fantastic gun handling, best gun handling I've seen on a tank. You can hit snapshots halfway across the map and they will hit and they will penetrate if you aim at the right spot when you snapshot. So yeah, it's very good at firing on the move because of that snapshot. Snapshots are really good. Angling, this thing has got mountains of armour. It's the most heavily armoured tank I think in the game. Yeah, I mean, armour profile, 200 front, 185 side, 160 rear, 240 frontal turret, 210 side and rear. If you keep the tank angled, keeping the turret in line with the chassis, and just angled it like that, they will just bounce. Once you're reloaded every about 12 seconds or something, you can just turret, snap, in, it'll go in. Perfect gun handling, just absolutely wonderful. And then turn your turret, because turret face is the weak spot. Once you point at them, they will be waiting for that. But because of how good this thing is at snapshotting, if you're angling like that and they're waiting for you, bzzzt, snapshot in, their shot will most likely miss and ricochet off of the side of your turret, and you'll have got basically free damage into them. Yeah, very, very, very strong tank. No real frontal weak spots other than this, but unless you're sort of point blank onwards to it, you can't see this. So this is the weak spot, the lower glacis, but even so, really, really strong profile on it. Very good gun, very good armour on it. I've got used to playing it and I do love it, and I think it is the best tier 10 out of the two that I have. D100, very good gun on it, obviously. Strong armour profile, not as strong as the mouse, but still, nonetheless, very good gun on a decent enough tank, but I just much prefer the mouse. And yeah, those are my favourite tanks from all the tiers, 1 to 10. I do, of course, have a lot of tanks here, as you can see, and I do still play all of them. I do alternate between the tanks that I play. But yeah, that was just because I'm unlikely to get anything from the Blitz Fair, and even if I do, I'm not going to have enough time to play them and make a decision based on a couple of games that I play. So yeah, I may as well do it now. And these are my favourite tanks from tier 1 to 10. So I'll thank you for watching, and goodbye.